Well, my space guy character needs a friend, so we're going to make a little alien space dog for him. And what I've done is just create or draw up a front view and a side view in Photoshop. And I've brought those two views in. And I'm just beginning to use basic spheres to block out the shape of the character. Now, ultimately, I will join these together in pieces like the torso and the head and the tail and the legs. But for right now, I just want to get the basic shape. So once I've got all of that in, I'm going to join these pieces together. And you can see there with the red and the blue, you can turn on face orientation and see which way the normals of the polygons are facing. And if it's blue, it's good. If it's red, it's bad. And basically, you want all of the normals or all of the front side of the polygons facing out. Because generally speaking, the textures can really only be applied to the front of the polygons. So you want your entire model to be blue before you begin sculpting or painting or texturing or UV mapping or anything like that. So I begin with everything at a fairly low poly count and just try and get as much detail as I can with as few polygons as I can. Just kind of build things together, like I'm combining the spheres of the legs and then adding or remeshing, I should say, which adds resolution or polygons to it, but it also hollows out those internal polygons between the spheres, the overlapping parts. And the reason why you want that is because Blender's sculpt tools do not work well at all when you've got internal polygons. So not only does remeshing change the number of polygons and increase the resolution, but it also hollows out any internal polygons. So now I've got the basic pieces pretty much together, and I'll begin adding details by, first of all, adding the eyes in. I think it's a good place to begin for the head to get those eyes in and mold the eye sockets and eyelids to those. And I've gone back and forth about what kind of nose this alien dog should have. I've looked at a lot of dog noses and rabbit noses and raccoon noses and all kinds, and I came up with something that isn't quite any of them. Whereas most dog noses have a round hole and a little slot. I think rabbit noses are a little bit more angular and slotted, so I kind of split the difference, as it were, on those. But that'll be in a bit here. And here I'm beginning to work on the antennas of the dog character. And my idea is that these little round things at the end of the antennas actually change color depending on the dog's mood, and the nose too. So when he's calm, they're blue. When he's angry, they're red or something like that. And my idea is to be able to animate the color of those depending on what's going on in the scene, depending on how the dog's supposed to be feeling. So the next step is, once I've got the basic shapes of each of the parts, I begin combining them together. So I've joined the legs with the torso now, and I've smoothed out the transitions between them, and I'm beginning to add more detail to the leg and the feet and the paws with the pads and everything like that. And as I've mentioned before in other videos, I keep reference images on my other computer monitor, and I've got pictures of dogs and dog noses and dog feet and all kinds of things on that, so I can refer to them quickly and easily. Even though this isn't a real thing, it's still good to ground the character, this character, in the real world that we know. So now I'm continuing to add even more resolution and adding more detail, smoothing things out a bit. And so here I'm going through and trying to figure out what kind of a nostril this dog should have. And I'm bringing up different reference images, trying to figure it out. And finally, I go with this kind of angled slot rabbit nose thing. And I'm not sure why I did, but I think it looks better than all the other things I tried. So I'm just going with that. And now it's time to start cleaning it up, start to smoothing it out, refining the shape, looking at it from every angle, just trying to get it to where I like it, where it has the kind of personality and the kind of feel that I was hoping for when I first drew it up. And that's what I'm looking for here. And I think right now we're at 1.3 million triangles. So now I can begin adding the paint. So I'm using the paint tool in Blender's sculpting area and just trying to imitate or replicate some of the patterns that I have in my drawing here. In the drawing, I used black outlines. I don't think I'm going to do that here. But the paint tools here in the sculpt area in Blender are pretty nice. Really the only problem I have with them is that to get them to be higher resolution, you've got to increase the resolution of the model. So because it's part of the sculpting tools, it responds to the number of polygons you have in the sculpt. And once we're done with this, I need to take the color attributes of that paint and add it to an actual material. And then that paint information will be visible in the render. Because what I'd like to do is just do a quick turntable render of this just to see how it looks. So I'm going to set up a few lights and set up a camera, parent it to an empty in the center of the grid, and then animate that empty rotating on the z-axis. And then you can see here I've also animated the material color of the antenna, so they're changing colors. And I think that worked out pretty well. I think I'm going to be able to animate the color of that pretty easily. So now what I've done is made a temp duplicate of the sculpt, and that's what I'm bringing into retopoflow. And I'm beginning with the face with the polypen tool, trying to get the same kind of loops around the mouth, the nose, and the eyes that I did on the human character. And I'm not exactly sure if a dog's face muscle structure is the same as a human's, but we really need to kind of identify with this character as not as a human, but emotionally. So I'm just going with the human type of polygon structure on the face. I would imagine most mammals have a similar muscle structure for the face, but I honestly don't know. I didn't check. I just wanted it like this, so I didn't really think to even check it. But in the same way that I created the loops around the eyes and the mouth, and from the bridge of the nose down to the chin, I've also done that here as well. And then I'll use that contours tool to go through and build out the polygons for the legs, the tail, the torso, and then use the patches tool and the strokes tool to connect all of those up. As I've mentioned, I like to kind of work or begin with the easy parts and kind of warm up and work my way to the harder parts. I think I actually work on the ear at the very end here, simply because I think the ear is probably going to be the hardest part. And sometimes it kind of scares me, so I have to kind of ease my way into it and build up my confidence before I get to the hard part, I guess. And I'm not going to use the retopology tools to get the inside of the mouth, like the tongue, the gums, the teeth, things like that. That's going to come afterwards, after I'm done with the retopology and am back in Blender. I'll then use Blender's modeling tools to create the inside of the mouth. So now I'm just going to use all of the tools in retopoflow to connect everything up, to connect all the different parts I've already done. And what did I say before? I thought it was around 1.2 million polygons when I was actually done with the sculpt. I don't recall how many polygons I end up with when I'm done retopologizing. If I had to guess, I think it'd be more like 30 or 40,000 polygons or triangles, which I think is once again very animatable with my particular computer. And as I've mentioned before, the Relax tool in RetopFlow is wonderful. It makes me look good. I can add all kinds of wonky edges and then use the Relax tool to smooth it out, spread the edges out evenly, and it makes it look like you planned it that way. It's great. And then finally, of course, the ear, saving the hardest to last. And this is just a matter of going around the outside of the ear, making that loop, and then filling in the middle. And for the paws, I think I actually did the front paws slightly differently than I did the back paws, because after I did the front paws, I actually learned a lesson and was able to do the back ones better or more efficiently. So maybe I might go back and fix the front ones, but I don't know that they're actually broken per se. They're just done a little bit differently. And there's no one way that things work in this world here, in Blender, in animation, in 3D modeling. There are so many ways that it works. There are probably a lot more ways that it doesn't work, but as long as it works, it's okay. And I don't know that I'll go back and redo those. I'm pretty finicky and pretty much a stickler for getting things correct or the way I want them to be, but I also want to keep moving forward. I also want to not get mired down in having something be perfect. Because what do they say? I don't know what the exact phrase is, but for me, I like to say that perfect is the enemy of done. I try not to worry about perfection so much as making it work so that it can actually get done. And you would think after all these years of being on this planet, I would have figured that out sooner. But I'm a slow learner, I guess. It just takes a while. So here you can see I'm really kind of struggling with the inside of the ear, trying to figure out how to get it done. I will finish up this loop around the ear, and then I'll just begin filling it all in. Once again, just getting it done. And ultimately, you'll get it rigged and begin animating, and there may be some things you want to change in edit mode, and that's possible. So now I'm going to use Simple Bake to bake those painted textures to image textures or texture maps and apply those to the low poly character. But of course, first I've got to UV map those. So I'm just applying the seams and then going to UV unwrap those. And then use the Blender's UV checker pattern there to test if I've got any stretching. And then finally, we use Simple Bake to bake out a color map, normal map, metal, and rough. And then we bring those four in and apply it to the material. And so now the Space Dude has got a friend. Well, thanks for watching. See you soon.